Good afternoon and welcome to another recap video. We have missed the last week's recap, but I'm back on track right now. And the past week has been really rough in the markets, especially on the local market. We've seen a few of the A plus setups failing. So this is one of them, is to go through a recap. The first stock is Uzma, whereby the trigger was at 120, but unfortunately prices didn't get much follow through after that and went on to hit our stops. Not a big deal there. Another stock that has actually failed is MRCV as well. This was an A plus setup here when it was triggered, but it went on to breach the stop levels after that. So I exited the position accordingly. Um, Good thing is the other stocks has actually paid out really well. Affin is one of them. Um, this stock has actually moved to give us 2-to-1 risk, which is very good. So the target was actually at 270 thereabouts. So it went up to 269, which was the near the previous high. Very good setup, and this was also an A plus setup here. You can see on the weekly it is the RSI is way above 60, whereas on the daily it rebounded from 60 level. Right. The next stock for the past week, another recap for the past week was IOIPG. So on Monday, it formed a very strong move up after breaking out this resistance. But prices then consolidated for the next 3 days, and on Friday, didn't get much follow through. We got some follow through in the morning, but uh, unfortunately in the evening, prices sold back down. So I'll be continue to look at this stock for it to break above this resistance. Of course, stops revise to break even just in case the if prices decide to go against me, right? So I'll be looking at this setup as well. Another good stock, another good setup on for last week was at least a setup that played out was PBA. So the trigger was at 232, 231 thereabout, and immediately it hit the resistance at 249-ish. So I've got out part of the position, or in fact, I got out all of my positions at the resistance. If you are wondering how I get this resistance, if you can see on the sides on these bars, this is actually the flexible or the fixed range volume profile tool, right? It's called the fixed range volume profile tool, whereby you get to select a range to see where the volumes were accumulated. So usually the boundaries, I for, the way I see support and resistance is that I look at the corners, the boundaries, where the volume gets cut out. So in this case here, the volumes got cut out near 250 area, and the support is at 222 thereabouts. So that's why I mark these two lines as my support and resistance area. So for prices to go further higher, it has to break at least 250 first. Then it will go higher, most likely, probably. All right. So, but for now, you will see resistance at the 250 area marked by the line, and this is where the volume actually gets cut off from the fixed range volume profile tool. Okay, so that's the recap for last week. The stocks that I was looking at for the past week. Let's move on to the stocks that are in the watch list for the coming week. Now, the first one is SL Vest, Solar Vest. So this is also an A plus setup. If you see on the RSI, the weekly RSI, it's way above 60. It's at 69. And the daily RSI is actually bouncing up from the 60 level. So prices are also supported near this resistance turn support area. Okay, so hopefully to see some follow through in the coming week. Now the next stock I'll be looking at is for a breakout on this stock, telecom. So I've marked the trend line here, and the weekly RSI is above 60, way above 60. So I'm looking for prices to break above this trend line, 594. If it manages to break above the trend line, I'm likely to see further upside. I'm expecting to see further upside in this setup. All right, this is an A setup. Next up, also an A plus, is OSK. I've marked the resistance, the previous high. So if you see prices are actually tightening right below the trend line here, this is your first loop, and then your second loop is actually tighter. So how you're going to see this is, let me mark this down. Now, if you see, this is exactly what I've drew on the right side. The first loop prices actually, loop number one, prices actually pull back pretty deeply, whereas on the second loop, prices are pulling back tightly. So whenever prices contract tightly, it means there is a volatility contraction. And I'm looking for a breakout above this resistance for prices to move higher. So for now, if you see the bell here, that's actually an alarm that I've set. I'm waiting for prices to break above this resistance for it to go higher. But also do note, I'm also noting that there is some form of resistance. I think this was derived from a past top. It's a resistance area. So very likely it will see some form of selling pressure at this area. And if it manages to break above this, I would expect more upside for this A plus setup. Next up is an A plus setup on MSM. So if you see prices are very choppy at this top, and if you pull the flexible range volume profile, you're going to expect some form of resistance at around this area, this yellow line. So I'm waiting for prices to break above, at least break above 250 or 249. And as long as prices continue to contract below 249, I'm not going to look at it. So I'm only waiting for it to break out above 249. And this is actually an A plus setup. The weekly is way above 60, whereas on the daily is bouncing out of 60. And the last stock that I'm going to look at, the last two stocks, in fact, that I'm going to look at for the coming week is Gamuda. This is an A setup. So RSI weekly is way above 60, whereas on the daily it is at 55, it's below 60. All right, so here prices, they are consolidating pretty tightly below the anchored VWAP, anchored from the recent high. The tighter it is, the better. So I'm looking for prices to break above this green anchored VWAP line. And the last but not least is Run Hill. This stock is way above 60 on the monthly, way above 60 on the weekly, but on the daily it is below 60 and curling up. So if you see, I've actually marked a trend line. It is like a flag. So I'm waiting for prices to break above this flag. All right. So if you look closely, it will be somewhere, the resistance will be somewhere around 120 level. So I'm waiting for prices to break above this resistance. And if you monitor on the weekly as well, it is bouncing out of the EMA, the 8-day EMA. So it is actually a very healthy pullback. and looking for a continuation pattern upwards. All right, so I'll be watching this on the watch list as well for the coming week. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the stocks that I'll be watching for the coming week. Thank you, and I hope you tune in for the next video. And bye bye.